on Facebook. That's the plan. So good afternoon and welcome to Citizen AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. Now, today's topic is really looking into self-determination and the procedures we perhaps need to relook at to be able to make sure we now take the proper steps, the next steps to get us over the line, to get to self-determination, which is what we want collectively. Let me at this juncture say that self-determination will not be achieved by individual persons. It will be achieved by the collective. It is our collective effort. It is purely by our collective effort and commitment to self-determination that will get us over the line and get us to the point where we now achieve self-determination for the coming generations. I hope that is clear. So we're trying to make that as clear as possible in what we're discussing here. So those of you on TikTok, you will not see what I'm reading, but those who are on Facebook, you will be able to see it. What I'm about to read to you was prepared was a self-determination procedures written by a man called Eric Bram. It was written originally in September 2005 with the 2020 update. So let's go ahead and read that. It just gives us, perhaps it gives us an opportunity to pause through all the different things that are happening with the struggle right now. There's so many, this one said, that one said. That's not going to achieve what we want. We need to focus on how we achieve self-determination. So I'm not going to get involved in that. Frankly, I'm not. I'm just going to try and continue to raise the level of awareness. Make sure we factor in the things we need to factor in to achieve that self-determination. And one of the things we need to do is our procedures, and to make sure that there is more continued awareness and involvement, collective involvement in achieving self-determination. So here goes. Here's what I'd like you to read. So since Eric Bram wrote, since the end of the Cold War, more and more groups of people have demanded the right to self-determination, meaning they have demanded their own nation state or some degree of autonomy within another nation state. The demand may be political. Groups may want sovereignty or greater political voice in the governmental structure, or they may be cultural, wanting the right to preserve their own language, cultural traditions, and way of life. Brackets, may be both, or may be both. So that's it. So let's look at it now. The responses to these demands have been quite varied, ranging from complete denial through ignoring the demands or repressing them. As we all know, this is what we're saying. In the Nigerian government, these demands have been actively repressed. It's been actively repressed in the Nigerian government. And that's what I wanted to bring to our attention. So let me just check. I just want to make sure that this thing is streaming as intended. So you beg your pardon if I'm just checking, and if I look a little bit involved. 1 second, I'm just checking the stream. So I will carry on, but I just want to make sure that it is still on target as planned. So beg your pardon. So like I said, one of the things that the Nigerian suppressing the clamor for self-determination is what the Nigerian government, they are masters at that, preventing the voice of the people to be heard. And that is why we say that Nigeria is not a democracy. So those of you who are new to this, you may not fully comprehend what I'm saying. Please do not forget, I will be talking in more detail about the love your reflection, and in fact I'll make it to a regular topic that we'll be talking about as well. And let's not forget, love your reflection is also part of this struggle, because when you love your reflection, you are more willing to support the people who look like you, who want to go for self-determination. So there is a connection between what I'm saying, but let's we won't go too far into that just now. Okay, so now it says here, the responses to these demands have been quite varied, ranging from complete denial through ignoring the demands or repressing them. I.e., that's what the Nigerian government is doing. They're repressing our demands. And that is what we are trying to make sure we do not. They cannot, the government must listen to the demands of the people. If you say you're a government, then the people are asking for demand, and the first thing they do is to ignore it. That tells you that that's not a government, that is an oppressive regime. That is a military imposition. As we all know, the Nigerian constitution is indeed a military imposition. It's a military decree number 24 of 1999. Again, those of you who are in the know will fully understand what I'm saying here. But let's crack on a little bit. So, so do beg your pardon. It's a little bit cold in the studio, and I'm still not. So I'm keeping my back warm as much as I can, and But anyway, so now. So it says here, ignoring demands, repressing them, or trying to accommodate them to lesser or greater degree. Often considerable conflict emerges before an accommodation or whatever kind is worked out. So you can see now, there is a clamor. Biafrans have been demanding for Biafran nations since 1967. There was the 1967 to 70 war, and as you all know, the Nigerian government, over 5 million Biafrans were killed. Now in 2020, since 2020, there has been a steady clamor. I have been one of the many people that have stood up, and you've seen me singing the Yoruba national anthem, clamoring for self-determination for Yoruba people. And I and many of us have actually joined hands in doing that very thing, to raise the level of awareness to be able to go for self-determination. So now let's go ahead. In order for these conflicts to be resolved, steps must be taken to address the desire for self-determination. Are you listening? It says, in order for these conflicts to be resolved, steps must be taken to address the desire for self-determination. At times, such conflicts have been resolved through secession. In many cases, however, this is unnecessarily extreme and impractical. Thus, self-determination efforts that involve breaking up a state are still generally viewed unsympathetically, especially due to the fear of setting a bad precedent. The recognition of former Yugoslavia states was an important exception, however. Now that's what I'm trying to get at. The fact is, they might say they frown on it, but Yugoslavia was broken up, and this is an important precedent that we can look at and hold on to. I'm not sure if many have seen this before, but it is worth pointing out again and again and again. So now let's just go ahead now. So it says here, in order for this conflict to be resolved, steps must be taken to address the desire for self-determination. At times, such conflicts have been resolved through secession. In many cases, however, this unnecessary extreme and impractical. This is unnecessarily extreme and impractical. Those self-determination efforts that involve breaking up a state are generally viewed unsympathetically, especially due to the fear of setting a bad precedent. The recognition of former Yugoslavia was an important exception. So an exception it may be, but it's an exception nonetheless. It is something that we can hold on to in going for self-determination. So let's go forward again. Richard Falk has categorized the different types of self-determination claims that have been historically. The table below summarizes these claims. So now, first order, there are types of self-determination. Excuse me. There are types of self-determination. The types of self-determination are: 1. First order, decolonization, elimination of foreign rule, e.g., Indonesia, India, Tunisia. Second order, secession by federal units in relation to central government, e.g., Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovakia, Kashmir, Aceh, and Quebec. So you can see they are giving you the various forms of self-determination. And I think it's important we go and look at this and understand it at length. Please do not forget to continue to give us the likes. Hit the like button as you're watching us, and please do share this broadcast. I know those of you who are not of Yoruba or in that Nigeria area, you may not understand, but do hang with us. Do try and listen to what we're saying, and we need your support. And of course, share it to friends who may be from those areas. That way they can help in actually raising the level of awareness and have this meaningful discussion among ourselves as Yorubas and Igbos and the like and all of that. So so you have a role to play. So the third order, administrative subunits, e.g. Chechnya, Kosovo, Dagestan. Fourth order, indigenous communities or nations, e.g. Cree, Navajo, Zapatistas. So they are telling you the types of secession autonomy. Type B, claims of human rights and democracy. I think this is where we strongly fall into, because Nigeria is not a democracy. And it says here, first order, the option of colonial status, e.g. Falklands. Second order, the option of federalism. We're not interested in that. Third order, the option of legal regimes of guarantee and protection. Oh gosh, this is nuts. What's going on here? Sorry about this. I don't know what's happening here. I need to use something to check. Let me just check something quickly as I'm going along here. So those of you who are on Facebook, do bear with me. I just need to quickly check that we are live on there, and I'm not too sure if it's going. Those of you on TikTok, thank you very much for joining. Please continue to share and you know, tap the and give us more likes, and also share the broadcast and leave comments. Thank you. So let's just go in here. Let me see. Okay. Oh man, sorry about that. Okay, 1 second please. Let me just quickly do this. I was trying to do something else, but something else came up. So do bear with us. I know this is a bit impromptu, but like I said, some of the broadcasts may well be like that. So now let me go back to where I was. I just need to check something quickly as we are going through this. So do bear with me, please. We haven't forgotten where we are. The topic is still on the screen, and we'll come back and we'll be there in just a couple of clicks. But I just want to make sure that the live broadcast is going on, and it's not being interfered with or anything. So let me just see. So good. Yeah, I can see that now. Go back to where I was. I just need to check something. So quickly, I was just trying to make sure we are going through this. So do bear with me, please. Just see. So good. Yeah, I can see that now. Go back to where I was. I just need to check something. So quickly, I was just trying to make sure we are going through this. So I'll just mute that for now. So it's working fine. So please do share. Don't worry about the numbers. Facebook are playing games. Please don't forget to go and subscribe to Citizen Air on TikTok, and of course on Instagram, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube particularly. Go ahead and subscribe. This will be restreamed on YouTube. I promise you, it will be restreamed as well there on there. There's one or two technical issues that's preventing that from happening, but it will be there. So please do subscribe to Citizen AY on TikTok as well. So now, where are we now? So the next thing, of course, is to go ahead. Is to now talk about the option of legal regimes of guarantee and protection that confers rights of access, participation, and equality. Yeah, you see, the issue is there is no equality. The problem why we are going for self-determination, this third one actually captures in many respects why we are going for self-determination for Yoruba Nation and Biafra and Middle Belt, because there is no equality. That is to say that in contrast to Nigeria, the Northerners see themselves as first among equals. They are the first class citizens, and we Biafrans, Yorubas, and Middle Belt are seen as second, third, or fourth class citizens in a nation we are supposed to be one. And that is one of the reasons why we are fully entitled to go for self-determination. That is why we are clamoring for self-determination. Please do share this broadcast. I understand that there might be restrictions and things about it, and that's preventing things from being shared. I understand that. I get that. But nonetheless, what I'm trying to do is to speak truth to power. The track that you see, the cover, what you see behind me is the album cover of the track How Long Una Go Dey Suffer. So you can get it on iTunes, on Spotify, and download it. I think it's on Sounds On as well. So you can download the track as How Long Una Go Dey Suffer. It's a track I sang and I wrote. I'm going to be doing a further update video, maybe a little remix to it, and probably in the coming weeks and months, hopefully we'll get that done. So we'll put it on because it's to continue to raise the level of awareness of our right to self-determination. It's in pidgin English. It's a language where all Yorubas, all Igbos, all Middle Belt understand. It's a language that is particularly specific to it's a kind of a pidgin English that is specific to that part of Africa. We speak. There's the kind of a pidgin English that we all understand for we to get, even though because we have different languages, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to make sure that our language, Yoruba language, doesn't die. Self-determination is one of the best ways to preserve our language. Self-determination, when you have self-determination, that in your area you can preserve your language, your culture, your food, your agriculture, everything can be safeguarded. And that is why self-determination is very, very key. But again, like I go back to the point I said, the third order, the option of legal regimes of guarantee and protection that confer rights of access, participation, and equality. There is no equality in Constitution of Nigeria, and that is why we're going for self-determination. The fourth one, the option of fiduciary arrangements administered by a traditional territorial sovereign with an undertaking to preserve traditional rights to sacred land, including hunting, fishing rights, and the ways of life of minorities, indigenous peoples. That doesn't refer to us. But the third one, the third order, is the one that is more specific to what we're trying to look at. It's not only that, but we also, above all, we have the right to self-determination as stated under the UN. So I hope that is making sense. We're trying to just really go into this in depth and speak about this from a very, very informed point of view. We're trying to gather as much information going forward to prepare, as we are preparing for the next steps that we're going to be taking to go for Yoruba Nation. Because some things, the steps we've taken up to this point has been great, but there's been some faltering steps of late. And we need to now address those, and that's why I wanted to talk about the procedures and understand the mechanisms as to what we need to factor in going forward. And of course, there is the discussion about the structures. I might touch on that briefly, but we'll see, how that goes. I've got some things I'm working on. Depending on how I feel, I may show it, I may not at this point. But it's not only myself. Many of us are having discussions about the next step for how to ensure that we carry forward Yoruba Nation. Self-determination for Yoruba people, i.e. Yoruba Nation. So I hope that makes some kind of it's clear. Now, one of the other things I'm looking at, so now it says here, the essay reviews the evolution of the concept of self-determination, examining how it has been addressed in international law and through devices internal to state. It then considers some criticisms of self-determination. So the history of self-determination, let's go and read that now. This is just to give us a little bit more background, because let's not kid ourselves. Those of us watching now, the self-determination clamor has hit has really floundered, for particularly in Yoruba land, and in Biafra, the talk of Peter Obi seems to have taken over the discussions. So we've lost some sort of momentum, and we need to get that back. And sometimes, often retracing our steps is often the best way to go about doing that. And these are one of the steps we have to retrace and look at again. And you have this book that I'm reading to you live on here, and I might put the link up afterwards. So and you have it there anyway. So here it says here, the idea of self-determination is often traced to the American and French revolutions and principles of individual liberty and freedom that they embodied. Now, on that point straight away, the fact of having African kingdoms in Africa, we're talking about Oyo Empire, the Ghanaian Empire, the Dahomey, the Benin Kingdom, and all of the Nok. These are age-old empires that existed to sustain their people. So self-determination is not something that was a new thing, that was that is an European idea. That's one of the things we need to actually challenge. So I'm using this topic that's been said here as a reference point, but at every opportunity we must ensure that people understand that the beginning of civilization is from Africa. All kinds of governance come from Africa. That is what I need to state here in between what is being said. So I hope that is clear. Now, going forward. So it says here, by the beginning of the 12th century, self-determination was widely accepted concept throughout Europe and United States. It's a concept that is part of African way of life. When you have a nation, the Benin Kingdom, that was raised down, that was their right, and they protected themselves until it was destroyed. They didn't want anybody to interfere in their lives. So it's very important to actually put things in the proper context. So now here we go. So it says here, it is. I'll get my glasses. I think I'm not seeing it too well. Oh, where is the glasses? 1 second. Just want to make sure I get it. So you see me with the glasses. Can you see? I hope you can see me there. So anyway, can you see me there? Yeah, you can. You can see me there. Sorry about that. Oh, it's gone off again. It's gone a bit shaky. Sorry about that. Sometimes it will happen, but I'm trying to get the pictures right. So beg your pardon. Those of you, that's for those of you on Facebook. There's no problem, but it's on TikTok that's a problem. I'm trying to address that, but you can hear my voice. So even though, okay, I think we got it now. I think so. Yeah. Okay. So now we're gonna read through that. So it says here. Oh gosh. What's going on here? Okay. I think I'll leave that for a minute. The idea of self-determination is often traced by Americans and French Revolution and principles of individual liberty and freedom that they embodied. By the beginning of the 12th century, self-determination was widely accepted concept throughout Europe and United States. Did many of you know that the Moors ran Europe up until the 700s? I don't think many are aware of that, but that's another story. We're just trying to put that in there so you know about this idea of self-determination is something that is actually, predates the things that they're trying to say. Just for context purpose. It is evident that the writings of Wilson and Stalin early in the 20th century and was enshrined in the United Nations at its founding. However, self-determination had evolved to mean something quite different in Central and Eastern Europe than in Western Europe and US. In Western Europe, it is based on the notion of popular sovereignty, giving rise to a representative government. In an ideal sense, individuals primarily exercise their right to self-determination by electing representatives to act on their constituents' interests. In Central Western Europe, can you notice in Central and Eastern Europe, by contrast, can you notice the discussion now? They are talking about Central and Eastern Europe, and they're excluding Africa. Democracy, the very idea of democracy, it comes from Africa. But anyway, that's I think we need to challenge these things as and when we see them. So let me see now. So let me just see there. So action in Western Europe, by contrast, it was rooted in exclusive nationalism that led to ethnic groups to seek their own country. As such, national minorities were more of a problem in the latter region. The aftermath of the World War I brought these issues to the forefront. How many people are aware that the World War I was really about colonization? In fact, World War II as well. How many of you were aware? We will go and talk about that later on. World War I, Germany lost the right to control the areas that they had after the Berlin Conference. So they wanted to get it back. And that was a large part of why the Second World War took place. But many people don't know these facts. But anyway, we'll come back into that later on. So now, the victors of the World War I required new states in Central and Eastern Europe to accept conditions in order to be recognized, but did not accept the obligations themselves. These ideas were built upon World War II principally through the United Nations. UN Charter Article 1.2 reflects a compromise between normative sympathies and desire of European countries to retain their colonies by saying, can you see that now? To retain their colonies by saying to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination. So you can see how they brought in the colonies. Now you can see that you have no right. The Western world has no right to speak for the people to whom the land belongs, i.e. the African people and those other areas that they colonized. But anyway, you can see it in the language. So to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect of principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. An increasingly expansive view of self-determination emerged in subsequent decades for a number of reasons. Economic and political strains reduced the will of European powers to retain colonies. You see now, the fact that the awareness and Africans started speaking up, they started changing the game. Until today, the colonies are so-called colonies. We're still colonized because you have the French bloc who are having to pay the French 500 billion euros yearly. 14 European countries, 14 African countries. So these are things that we need to be aware of, and that's why we're going for self-determination, and we need to make sure we dismantle the agreements that was reached on African soil by that Berlin conference. But anyway, self-determination is still the goal. But the reason I'm mentioning all of this is to ensure that you understand there is a connection between what is being done. There is a single line of connection from the conception and inception of Berlin conference to the nation state we have in the whole of Africa till date, and it's impacting our lives, with Nigeria included, in fact centrally to this issue. But anyway, let's carry on. So the Cold War, so an increasingly expansive view of self-determination emerged, and subsequent decades, for a number of reasons, economic and political strains, reduced the will of European powers to retain colonies. The Cold War rhetoric battle laid bare the contradictions between the West's claims of being defenders of freedom, while at the same time maintaining their colonial dominations. I want to read that bit again. The writer here, Eric Bram, he's hit a point here that I agree with him 100%. When something is said that resonates with what we think, I think we should highlight it and say, let me highlight that for you. So let's go here. Let me highlight that for you. So he says here, the Cold War rhetorical battle laid bare the contradictions between the West's claims to being defenders of freedom, while at the same time maintaining their colonial dominions. That is what many African countries to date, we are nothing but colonial dominions. It's important to state that. Please do bear with us. This is a topic that many who are not in that area will not understand. So I'm looking at the numbers on TikTok, and that's fine. But please do give us love and like. Continue to tap the screen, and we appreciate you. Lola Lasokumi, thank you very much for your comments. I might see if I can bring you on air a little bit and talk to you, but that will be exclusively on TikTok. But this broadcast is happening on Facebook, and it will be restreamed on YouTube later on. So let's go and read that section one more time. The Cold War rhetorical battle laid bare the contradictions between the West's claims to being defenders of freedom, while at the same time maintaining their colonial dominions. The point I'm making is, as we speak right now, we are still colonial dominions, and that's why we are trying to go for self-determination. Okay, what's more, the work of activists brought human rights to greater attention internationally. Finally, the rise of nationalism made self-determination attractive. This culminated in the 1960 UN Declaration on granting independence to colonial people. You see that? Granting independence, UN, the 1960 UN Declaration. Let me highlight that again. This culminated in 1960 UN Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial peoples, which has had the effect of shifting the conception of self-determination from a principle to a right. So that much we can say. It wasn't just, it moved from being a concept that you have the right to self-determination to now being a right. And that is the right that we are now espousing and making sure that our people go for. And these are foundational things that we're talking about. So you can actually see it's highlighted there for you. These are foundational facts that we are putting on the table for us all to be aware. Sometimes in the discussion, it was important, and it is important for us to retrace our steps, because the self-determination struggle has somewhat stalled at the minute due to one or two issues, and due to sidetracks and some sort of interests and things. We need to have a focus that is going to be collective interest, not selfish interests. So that's the point I wanted to make there. Now, so it says here, self-determination in international law. At present, a tension exists between the right of self-determination and the principle of territorial integrity of the sovereignty state. Now, in the case of Nigeria, I maintain this unashamedly. Nigeria was not created by Nigerians. That was, of course, created under the 1884 Berlin Conference, signed on the 26th of February 1885. Nigeria is not a nation created by Nigerians. It was an imposition, and now, after the 100-year lease ran out in 2014, they're now still carrying on with that fraud. And we, the indigenous people, have the right to self-determination. So I just wanted to just put that there in the discussion. So self-determination is in international law takes two primary forms. One part is the developing human rights law, which is predicated on the notion of giving individuals more control of their lives. The other part, which is more contentious, involves groups that make claims to establish independent sovereign states. This conflict with the long-standing understanding that international borders are inviolable. So what borders are inviolable? Is it the borders of the ancestral of our African kingdoms that were destroyed without a mark, or the ones that the colonials created themselves? Can you see that there is a double standard here? So they destroyed the borders that were created by that the kingdoms already established, only to replace it by colonial ones, and now using laws to protect those colonial borders. For as long as those borders are in existence, we the Africans do not own our soil. It's important we understand that, and that those borders have to come. They have to come down. So let's have a look. So let's have a look now. Where was I now? The other part of the contentious involves making claims to establish these conflicts with the long-standing understanding that international borders are inviolable. That's it. Legally, self-determination has generally been confined to level of the state. Empirically, those movements that utilize violence and succeed tend to be recognized, thereby spreading the message that violence pays. So there is an inference there in what they're saying. Again, the establishment of all of the what you now know as African nations was predicated on violence that used to term expedition. They used that seemingly harmless word, expedition, to explain away when the colonials went into Africa and actually took it over, destroyed it. And now they're now saying, no, the countries that are created, it's your country. We don't. Many of the countries were created on the board at the Berlin Conference, headed by Otto von Bismarck and the likes. So we need to be very, very clear why we're going for self-determination, certainly in Africa. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and continue to discuss this. So let's put this together again. Oops, sorry. I want to just check if something's going on there. I hope you can hear me. So those of you on TikTok, hope you can still hear me. But we're trying to just put the case forward for self-determination and the steps we must take. So I'm reading as I can't show you because it's on the screen. It's best if I discuss it and you can hear my words and you can follow along in that way. Those of you on Facebook, I thank you again. The picture you see behind is behind me is of the song "How Long Una Go to Suffer." It's on iTunes and it's on Spotify. Please go ahead, download, share it. Help raise the level of awareness. I might even play the song in its entirety on this podcast as we go along. But let's go ahead. Let's proceed. So, okay. So now, some argue that all separatist claims are tied to territory, rooted in historical grievances, and therefore, you see, to even say historical grievances, what is it? The facts are, as far as Africa is concerned. Let me see if I can do this quickly. I need to get something up because it's important to really state this. When they talk about historical grievances, these are not grievances. These are injustice. Africa has suffered a twin injustice of slavery and colonization. Africa has suffered twin injustices of slavery, enslavement of the people, and secondly, colonialism. And what is more, they've now tied to two together and now put the blame on Africans and saying it's our fault. And these are the kind of things that we need to expose and explain to our people in going for self-determination as Yorubas, as Igbos, as Middle Belt. These are all interlinked. Keep in mind, they are all interlinked, but what we're trying to do is to go and get the basis upon which we can, the procedures for self-determination is what we need to look at. And maybe that will give us a bit of clarity going forward. Let me just see if I can find the, let me see if I can go, if I got something somewhere. I hope I can find it now. So if I can find that for you, see if I can find it. Yeah, okay, now. Good, perfect. I'm just going to quickly show you this. See, when they talk about, this is the bit I'm trying to, I hope this makes sense. You won't be able to see it on TikTok, again, keep in mind, but I'm going to be showing it on Facebook. Don't forget to get people to follow us on TikTok and on Instagram, on YouTube. Please, we do appreciate your support. So let's carry on. So I wanted to, the reason I mentioned this point I'm about to show you next is the point they raised here. They said here, confined to empirically succeed, but thereby spreading the message. Some arguments that the separatist claims are tied to historical grievances. Historical grievances. Now, I want you to, those words, remember those words? I'm going to show you something now. And this is where we need to understand, because sometimes they try and explain that away. These are the kingdoms these are the many kingdoms that you see on the screen there. Let me see if I can go back up here. Can I go back up there? So I'm just giving you a quick snapshot of kingdoms that the colonials destroyed. And all the way down here, you can see South Africa, they destroyed many kingdoms. Great Zimbabwe Empire, they destroyed that. A lady called Sikana was My Bones Shall Rise. She came from a particular dynasty. She was killed along with a friend who were trying to protect the empire for their people. So I'm just giving you examples. I'm just, rough ideas. So when they say historical grievances, we are talking about kingdoms destroyed. These are the kingdoms that were destroyed. Okay, so just there, it's important to put the context there, because when you see what is written there, you will not be able to conceptualize what is really there's a hidden meaning that tries to hide away when they say historical grievances. No, these are destruction of kingdoms that they have been, those that destroyed them continue to benefit from till today. So, and therefore, any resolution requires addressing territorial needs. Simply being a distinct people is not enough in Brimalaya's views, norms, or international law. However, do not root themselves in territorial claim, but rather whether the aggrieved group constitutes a distinct people. Ideas or democratic participation have been confused with self-determination. So now, again, so keep in mind what we are saying here is we're trying to show that we have the right to self-determination based purely. I mean, I can show you. Let me show you again. There is the Oyo Yoruba here. You see that? Let me go in. Let me go in deeply if I can go in. Here we go. I'm trying to show you. You see Yoruba there. So there is a Yoruba kingdom here. Ife. You see, that's the Yoruba kingdom. That kingdom was divided into three. It's part of it is in Nigeria, part of it is in Dahomey, in Benin, and part of it is in Togo. So these are things that are, and that's why we have to go for self-determination. I'm just giving an example. I'm giving an example. So now let's go back again. So, however, do not root themselves in territory, but rather when aggrieved people, group constitutes distinct people, ideas of democratic participation have been confused with self-determination. No. Self-determination has also been viewed in terms of human rights, which requires recognition that this right is limited by necessity of protecting the rights of others and general community, as with any human right. International law does not provide clean clear standards with respect to this view. Any effort to construct standards must take account of human rights standards and the ability of an appropriate body to enforce those standards. Self-determination does not necessarily entail statehood, but a number of other mechanisms exist, such as membership in regional organizations and international fora, parallel or multiple representation for suitable actors, such as Taiwan's participation in WTO, provides another means to minimize secessionist pressures. In a speech before the UN General Assembly in 1991, Prince Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein announced his intention to pursue a new direction for self-determination. The vision was to create a new legal framework with the goal of granting local communities greater self-determination. He hoped to make with self-determination less of a zero-sum proposition with respect to national borders. Some see the merit of the proposals in its potential to underscore symbolic rights while restricting potential for destabilizing international system. Now, so you can see the kind of discussion we're talking about now. So this is just giving us context to be able to understand going forward in terms of discussing issues around self-determination. Okay. So where is it going now? So given the limited opportunities for, let me see. Yeah, okay. Internal self-determination. Given the limited opportunities for international recognition that exists for most groups threatening secession, alternative solutions have been sought that allows groups of a greater degree of self-determination within existing state borders. Academic solutions to ethnic conflict have tended to revolve around two different solutions to ensuring that democratic institutions do not produce permanent minorities: the consocial-national and integrative or pluralist models of democracy. Consocial